So in this lecture, we will talk about Python data structures. So that is our next topic. Notice I'm selecting the markdown and here we created the heading 1, that is data structures. So we will talk about list, tuple, set, dictionary and string. We will cover all these different data structures, right? So for each of these data structure, we will talk about how to create a data structure. For example, let's start with list, right? So for list, how to create a list, what are the properties of the list, and how to select the elements of the list, and how to update, that is add, delete and replace elements of a list, and how to perform different operations on list, right? So for each of these 5 data structures, we will cover these different topics. Okay, so the first thing is, let's start with list. So that is our first data structure. So how can we create a list? We have to specify the elements of a list inside a square brackets, right? Inside the list, you can have any data. It accepts mixed elements like integer, string, float, etc. For example, we are creating a list 1, and we have to specify the elements inside the square brackets with comma separated, right? So if you notice here, inside the list, you can have any data. It accepts mixed elements. For example, 1, 2, these two elements are integers. Python, this is a string, and 1.2 is a float, right? So it can accept any data type elements. And if you want to see what we have inside this list, so let's try to run this code. This is what we have inside the list: 1, 2, Python 1.2, right? Now let's try to understand the properties of list. So what are the properties of list? List accepts mixed elements, that is integer, string or float, right? And elements are ordered. The way we enter the elements, the same way we will retrieve the elements. So the way we entered the elements, the same way we will retrieve the elements. And list allows duplicate values, right? So you can add duplicate elements inside a list, and list is mutable. That means once you create a list, you can add, update, delete elements of a list. That is, you can change the list once you create a list, right? Now let's try to add duplicate elements, right? So inside the list, we can change it. That is, we are adding the element 1 again. So we are trying to add duplicate element and we are trying to change. That is, list is mutable, right? So let's try to run this code, and now let's print this list 1 again. So now you can see list allows duplicate values 1 and 1, right? So these are the properties of list. It can allow any elements, that is integer, string or float, etc. and the elements are ordered. It can allow duplicate values, and list is mutable. That is, once you create a list, you can either add or update or delete elements of a list. Okay. Now the next thing is, let's see how to do the selection of elements of a list. Okay. So we can select the elements of a list by either positive indexing or negative indexing. Okay. So let's see positive index, that is left to right. That is called positive index, right? So for example, 0th index value is 1, first index value is 2, and second index value is 1, and programming is third index value, and so on, right? For example, let's say if you want to get the value of programming, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So we have to specify list 1 of 3. That should give us programming, right? So this is positive indexing. And what is negative indexing? That means right to left. For example, if you want to get the same element, that is programming, with negative index, then we have to give -1, -2 and -3, right? So if you give list 1 of -3, that should give us programming, right? So this is negative index, that is from right to left. Positive index means left to right, right? So what we have inside the list 1 now, this is what we have, right? And if you want to extract multiple elements, so far we extracted only one element. And if you want to extract multiple elements, for example, let's say if you want to extract one programming, right? That is 0, 1, 2 and 3. So the value at the index 2 and 3, right? So for that we have to give, this is the starting index and this is the ending index. Ending index is always exclusive, that is end minus 1. So we have to get the value of programming, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3. So we have to give 4 here because the ending index is always exclusive and it will calculate end minus 1, that is 4 minus 1, 3. So this should give us the value at the second index and the value at the third index. So that way we will be able to extract multiple elements from this list, right? So let's run this code. So now you can see we are able to extract 1 and programming, right? So notice the ending index is exclusive and it will calculate as end minus 1, okay? So now let's extract the same by using negative indexing. So if you want to extract again 1 and programming, we have to use minus 4, that is minus 1, minus 2, minus 3 and minus 4. That should give us 1 and minus 2. So let's run this code. So now you can see we are able to print 1 comma programming, right? This one by using positive indexing and this one by using negative indexing, right? And now let's try to extract 2 to Python by using negative indexing. So how can we extract that? Minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5, right? So we have to give minus 5 and here minus 2 plus 1, that is minus 1, right? So list 1 of minus 5 minus 1, right? So let's run the code. So now you can see we are able to extract from 2 to Python all these elements. So this is how you can extract multiple elements from a list, right? Now let's try to extract the elements from starting to programming, right? That is 0, 1, 2, 3 and plus 1, that is 3 plus 1 is 4. Notice here we are not specifying the starting index when we are extracting from beginning, right? So we don't have to specify the starting index. If you want, you can specify, otherwise it is optional, right? So if you notice here, we did not specify any starting index and it is giving from starting, that is 1, 2, 1 programming. So that is what we are able to extract, right? That is end minus 1. So until third element it will print, right? Now let's try to extract from this ending value until programming, right? So how can we give minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, right? So if we are trying to extract the elements from the end index is optional. So let's run this code. So now you can see we are able to print from programming to 1.2, right? So that is how you can extract the elements. Now let's see how to update the elements of a list. So we will cover add, delete and replace. So how to add elements of a list? We can use append, extend, insert. Append is used to add single element at the end of a list. Extend is used to add multiple elements at the end of a list. And insert is used to insert single element at any index position, right? So let's see one by one. For example, let's consider this is our list. Let's try to print this list. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the first method is append. So by using append, let's add the value of Python at the end of this list. Okay. So let's run this code. And now let's see what we have inside list 1. So now you can see we are able to add the element Python at the end of the list by using append function, right? The next one is extend. So extend is used to add multiple elements at the end of a list. So let's use extend function and we are trying to add multiple elements, that is 7, 8 and 9 at the end of the list, right? So let's run this code. And now let's see what we have inside list 1. So now you can see we are able to add the element 7, 8 and 9 by using extend function, right? And what is the next one? Insert. Let's say if you don't know how to use the function insert, so we can use help, right? So that is list1 dot insert question mark. So this will give you the method signature, right? That is how to use this method. Now let's try to use the insert function and pass the value, that is 1 comma programming. So insert function is used to insert single element at any index position. So we are using the index position as 1 and we are trying to insert programming, right? That is at the index position 1, we want to insert the value programming, right? So this is what we have. Now we want to insert here at the first index, we want to insert programming, that is 1 programming, 2 and so on, right? So let's run this code. And now let's see what we have inside this list. So now you can see we are able to insert programming at the index 1, right? So this is all about add. The next one is delete. Now let's see how to delete the elements from a list. So that is the next one. So how can we delete elements of a list? By using pop, delete and remove, right? So we will cover one by one. So how can we use pop? So let's run this code. So now you can see we deleted the element 9, right? And now if you see the list again, so now you can see we deleted the element at the last index, right? That is the last element has been deleted by using this pop function. Okay, now let's try to delete this 4. So if we have to delete the value of 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So the index is 4. So we have to pass the index in order to delete the element by using this pop function, right? So element with index. So let's run this code. So now you can see we removed this value of 4 by using this pop function. Okay. So now let's try to see what we have inside list. So now you can see element 4 has been deleted, right? And if you don't know the index of an element, then we can use remove and pass the element. For example, let's say if you want to delete this programming and if you don't know what is the index value of this programming, in that case you can use remove function and pass the element value. So let's run this code and now let's see what we have inside list 1. So now you can see we are able to delete the value programming, right, by using remove function. When you don't know the index value of the element, you can directly pass the value and delete the element, right? And we also have delete to delete multiple elements. For example, let's say if you want to delete list 1 of 0 to 2, right? So that is 0 and 1. These two elements if you want to delete, specify starting index as 0 and the ending index is end minus 1, right? That is 2 minus 1. So it will be deleted till the first index. So 1 and 2 will be deleted. So let's run this code. And now let's see what we have inside list 1. So now you can see the first two elements have been deleted, right? So you can see the rest of the elements. So we have covered delete. Let's see how to replace the elements of a list, right? So that is our next one, how to replace the elements of a list. So let's say if you want to replace the element at the first index, that is at the 0th index, so you can just simply give list 1 of 0 is equal to 33. So we are trying to replace the value at the index 0 with 33. Instead of 3, we are trying to replace with 33, right? So let's run this code. And now let's see what we have inside list. So you can see 3 has been replaced with 33, right? That is, we replaced the first element 3 with 33. So you can add, delete, update, right? That means list is mutable. So after you created the list, you can change it. Okay. So if you want to see different methods that are available inside a list, we can use dir function and pass the list. So let's run the code. So now you can see these are the different operations that you can perform inside a list. That is, either you can append, clear, copy, count, extend, index, insert, pop, remove, reverse, sort. So these are the different methods that are available inside a list, right? So we have covered some of them, and you can experiment remaining. That is how to sort the elements of a list, how to reverse the elements of a list, right? How to count the elements of a list. So you can experiment these remaining methods, right? So let's quickly review what we learned here. So we started with data structures. We have different data structures, that is list, tuple, set, dictionary and string. And for each data structure, we are trying to cover how to create the list and what are the properties of the list, how to do the selection of the elements of a list, and how to update the list, and how to perform different operations, right? If you have to create a list, we have to use square brackets and specify the elements inside this square brackets. So that is how you can create a list. And what are the properties of a list? List accepts mixed elements. That is, either you can create a list with integer, string or float, etc. And elements are ordered. That is, the way we entered the elements, the same way we will retrieve the elements. And list accepts duplicate elements, and list is mutable. That is, after you create the list, you can either add, update, delete elements of a list, right? And here we saw how to select the elements of a list either by using positive indexing or negative indexing. So this is the positive index and this is the negative index. And if you want to select multiple elements, you can specify starting index and ending index, right? Either positive indexing or by using negative indexing, we can select multiple elements of a list. And then the next thing is we saw how to update the elements of a list. That is how to add by using append, extend and insert functions. And then we saw how to delete the elements of a list by using pop, del and remove, right? And then we saw how to replace the elements of a list, right? And if you want to see different methods that are available inside a list, you can always use dir function. Okay, that's all about list. All right, thank you.